Now that we've gone through the introduction of the JENEsys Edge VAV configuration tool and the buttons that are displayed in the initial icon, we're going to go ahead and set up a project. In order to set up a new project, we're going to select New. And when we select New, a window pops up to give us a project name. For my project name, I'm going to name it Classroom. After we select OK, the project setup window pops up. This window defines the structure of the project. It determines the naming and the number of the air handlers, zones, and VAVs that comprise the system. You can also set the naming configurations to tailor the system to a particular customer, as well as define starting network configurations. Two tabs are used in this window: the base configuration and assignments. There are several buttons that are common to both tabs in this window. The first one is to close the project. This closes the project setup window and returns to the start screen. If the project has been modified, the user has the option of saving the modifications. Then we have Reset All, which clears all the data from the project setup fields. The user is given a warning that this cannot be undone. When these are highlighted, we have the Save Project window, which saves the project to the project file and the project database. The Reload project reloads the project from the saved database. This does not reload the project data from a file. It will override existing field values with values from the database. The user is then prompted that this cannot be undone. Then we have the Begin VAV configuration. This launches the VAV entry window to edit each VAV in the system. The user is then given the option to save any modifications. The Base Configuration tab is used to set the initial project defaults, naming structure, and default network settings. The number of AHUs and VAVs, as well as the list of zone names, are then used in the Assignment tab to build the navigation structure. We can select the number of AHUs in the AHU box here, which I'm going to select 2. The number of VAVs sets the number of VAVs in the system. This value will be different based upon the per zone box in this checkbox here. When this is selected, and we have, for example, 5 VAVs in this particular setup, if we select per zone, it will put 5 VAVs per zone. Then we have the zone names here, and this is where we enter the zone names to be used. After the first zone name, we are going to hit enter to enter the next one. So I'm going to say first floor and hit enter. And then I'm going to type in second floor. But I'm not going to hit enter there. It is preferred that you use camel case and maybe underscores. No spaces at all. Then we have the naming structure. And this will give us the prefix, the body, and the suffix of our air handler and VAV naming structure. The increment button will, when selected, will increment the number of VAVs and air handlers in the system. When the zeros are selected, this will place a leading 0 in front of the air handler VAV base name. So if there are 10 air handlers and the 0 is unchecked, the AHU names are going to be AHU1, AHU2, AHU3, all the way through 10. If the zeros is checked, then the AHU names will be AHU01, AHU02, all the way through AHU10. Then we have the default network settings. We have the IP address, which we can choose to increment, the subnet mask that will be used, and the gateway address. Though you do not need the MAC address and the host ID, you will always need the IP address, the subnet mask, and the gateway address. Even if you don't use the gateway in the Edge VAV controller itself, it still needs to be there. For the sake of demo purposes, I'm going to keep the air handler and VAV body the same. I'm not going to select anything for the suffix or the prefix, and I'm going to choose to keep them incremented and no zeros as the leading place. For my IP address, I'm going to start with 192.168.1.182. I'm going to keep the subnet mask the same, and my gateway address is going to be 192.168.1.254. I then am going to select the build table. Now that we can see that I have built the table, it shows the number of air handlers, the zones, and the number of VAVs. Next, I'm going to go to the Assignments tab. And this is where I'm now going to build my tree for my VAV project. To do this, I'm going to select a piece of information from each of the boxes, and I'm going to hit the arrow or the double chevron that points to the right. If I want to continue to add them, all I need to do is double click the VAVs, and I have 3 VAVs for the first floor. And now I'm going to select Air Handler 2, the second floor, and I'm going to put VAVs 4 and 5 there. Now, you are allowed to have multiple zones across multiple air handlers. This will be your project to configure. After we have done this, we're going to select Begin VAV Configuration.